back then, we were driven to keep creating a fan base, but we only knew a slight blueprint from the American scene bands, because it looked like a fantasy world. Like they had like these fan bases and they played these shows, and the fans were loyal to them, and they were interested in their inventions and stuff. And we didn't have that locally. We only had that on the internet, because where we grew up, there was just like sheep. You know, so they weren't showing up at the shows. So.
I'm gonna start right at the beginning of your journeys. I'll start with you, Luke. What was your upbringing like, your childhood like? What was baby Luke like?
Baby Luke. I grew up in rural Western Sydney, like these boys. Stock standard suburban living. My brother played drums, middle brother, and then my oldest brother played guitar for like a month. But there was like a guitar around the house, so that's how I started. So I would play like Smoke on the Water.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. You learn something.
I should ask you more questions.
Yes, that's how it started.
Kind of what got me into music was actually the game Guitar Hero. I remember my dad came in one day and he was like, you know, it would be nice if you were able to take this, you know, thing that you love about, you know, this video game and actually apply it to like a real skill, like playing guitar. And I was like, you know, I'm gonna crush this. Let's play. And then he bought me like some acoustic guitar. And within the first like 2 days, I was like, nah, you know what? This is way too hard. I'm gonna stick to Guitar Hero. I'm already so good at Guitar Hero. And then I was like, Dad, I'm gonna stop playing guitar. You can go and sell this guitar. And then he ended up buying me like a cool electric guitar. And then I was like, okay, now I'm in. Now I'll play.
My whole drumming quest was kind of like collecting a drum at a time. My stepdad was a drummer, so I started off by begging him. I said, hey, I'd like to play drums. He goes, well, you can come work for me at my gigs and set up my kit. I did that from about 7 or 8 years old. So I'd go to the pubs on the weekends, and the deal was that eventually, if I did a good job, I'd get to play drums with the band. His method at teaching me was I earned a drum at a time. So he goes, if you can play in time on a kick drum, just go duh, 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 duh. He goes, once you can do that for a minute straight, I'll give you a hi-hat. And then you can go, and he'd make me sit there and do it for hours. And I would earn a drum at a time, and I ended up earning a whole drum kit, and then he got me my own. But I've been kind of on that drumming quest since then.
Music was kind of always in my family. Like, my family would just like sit in the backyard and sing. My dad would come home from the pub and play the Proclaimers, like, and blast it in the backyard. And I could always like recognize like what a great song was. The passion developed when I honestly met the guys, you know.
So how did y'all meet?
We all went to the same school.
Okay.
And then Ash went to a school maybe like 20, 30 minutes away. But I knew of him on Facebook because he was the only good drummer in our entire district.
Yeah.
For me to like know that Ashton existed and was a good drummer before I even met him, it's actually pretty like insane.
My mum is a teacher and taught Ashton at his school. My mum taught him maths. So I sort of knew of him also.
Yeah.
So like, that guy's the drummer.
Yeah.
And through this friendship comes 5 Seconds of Summer. Mm-hmm. You came up with the name, right?
I did.
How?
I don't know. I really don't know. We were having a day where we were just like talking about a bunch of ideas, and we wrote down like a bunch on a list, and I always put 5 Seconds of Summer at the top. Acronyms were really important for all of the bands that we liked. They all had like a really good acronym that like you can chant at a show.
Yeah.
You know, and these guys are so indecisive, and they would just never be able to make a decision. And one day I was just like, guys, I made the Facebook page. I'm called it 5 Seconds of Summer. It is what it is. And
But why 5 seconds? Is it just this idea that summer is just too short? The things that we love are too short? Like, what's the?
It's all about the acronym though, isn't it?
It was mainly a.
It was mainly about the acronym, but I liked the idea of like not having enough of this one. If it is a person named Summer, if it's a thing, Summer, whatever it is.
Was it music that brought you guys together, the three of you, before you met Ash? Or were you friends first, and just happened to be musicians and y'all worked? Or was it like, you play, let's make a band?
It was music that brought us together, but it wasn't the band. It was just like the three of us were the only people in our school who like loved music as much as we did.
It's interesting in America, like if something like that happened here, I feel like in school it'd be like, that's really cool, that's a really popular thing to do. But for us, when we started the band, it was like a negative.
It was female repellent for sure. It was. The only smart thing that we did was maintain a mentality that it really didn't matter what people thought about what we were doing. And thank God for that, because that's provided us with everything. Becoming deaf to the hater vibe was really important to our growth.
Ash, what was it about Five Sauce that pulled you in?
I had been in a couple bands already, and the first couple things that struck me about meeting these guys was I was always battling to play music, but it was a flow thing for these guys. They were down to do it anyways, no matter what. They were down to show up at a rehearsal and jam and practice and stuff like that. So it struck me that it was easy to just get together and have fun, and Luke had like a soul voice to me. He didn't sing like a rock singer, and he especially didn't sing like the bands that these guys told me they liked. And I was like, okay, like, you know, I'm getting like All Time Low and Coheed and Cambria and these strange, like, you know, just bands out there doing their thing or whatever. But I was like, damn, Luke, and the way these guys sung with him in harmony and stuff seemed so much more elevated than anything we had tapped into yet. And they had true well of potential that I don't even think they were fully aware of. So I still do it today. I try to tell you guys, like, you're awesome. Like, you have the natural ability to be a part of music and keep doing it and keep flowing with it and keep being creative and keep believing in yourselves. So it's kind of all I've done for the past decade.
Around this time, you guys began doing the YouTube covers. Just walk me through your minds at 15, 16 when you guys started putting those.
At the time, YouTube covers were like massive. So for whatever reason, we did our versions of that, and like compared to everyone else recording, it was like total garbage. We would do one take and we would say, yeah, that's probably good enough, right? Let's go play Xbox, whatever, you know? It was very much an afterthought. It was more about connecting with the people who would, for some reason, watch it.
We really didn't want to be a YouTube cover band because we
would hate recording those videos.
It was kind of the only outlet in Western Sydney. Was like, all right, well, how do we get to as many people as possible? It's either you play in pubs where we didn't fit in as a band, we felt at the time. I mean, what was the other options? The other options were go on a singing show.
Yeah, the other options, and I even did this, like I auditioned for Australia's Got Talent. It wasn't because, oh damn, that's a perfect fit. It was like desperation.
It's like that's the only other option.
For an opportunity.
I think once we had sort of developed somehow people watching us on YouTube and doing, you know, a few different covers, we decided to transition into, you know, showing them original music. And Callum was the first one in the band who ever started to like write original music. That was by far the biggest shift within the band.
How did your lives change when you got signed and began to see that this was real?
It felt crazy to be amplified for such a simplistic thing, because we just wanted to share our live shows and share the joy of our fan base and share our songwriting. We were so down to play everywhere, anywhere, anytime, any continent. So just when we got signed, it was like, damn, that's the keys. We have more amplification now to just be out there in the world and keep cultivating our audience. But also, we were just young guys who wanted to travel as well. We didn't go to college, we didn't go to university, we didn't get any higher education. But you know, when we got signed, it was kind of like, okay, I get to do music every single day, but I better learn about these labels, or I better learn about the deals we're signing, or I better learn about the mechanisms and how to release music on a global scale and all these things. You know, it was like going to school.
Going out there, you begin to gain traction, you're touring. Tell me about when you decided to make the move to London.
So we got offered to open for One Direction. You know, we were 16, 17 at the time, so it was obviously a massive commitment and a lot of conversations with parents trying to figure that out. But yeah, it was a massive move for us to go over there, and we were writing every day, and I think it's one of those things, we just saw an opportunity and we were like, we want to dive in because we know how precious this is and how rare this is, that we've first of all come together and we have a small community of people that enjoy what we do. So we were doing writing sessions and rehearsing, and we sort of just treated that time as like, how do we become the best live band as possible? How do we get better at songwriting? These are sort of like very core things that we based the band's like worth on.
Yeah.
So we would walk through, you know, snow to the train to go to songwriting sessions every day with all these people that, you know, were sort of taking a chance on this up and coming band from Australia. So we just, same as always, we just attacked those opportunities with as much Western Sydney gutso as possible.
Leading up to that debut album, Callum, how did touring the world and having those experiences affect your songwriting process?
It's easier for me to kind of reflect and understand how our brains were working now than it was at the time. I think at the time it was totally instinctual, like it was very present, which made it so beautiful, you know. We were just thinking of how amazing it was and how awesome it was to be, you know, finally touring the world, finally creating music and doing it with like great friends in which you took a chance on. But back then, I mean, everything is just like transferal of energy. So playing shows is like probably one of the most impactful 90 minutes of our lives in terms of like, these are people who have come into a space, who have found things in the band that they relate to, and all different walks of life and journey. So it's like an incredibly powerful thing to step up, to be, you know, stating messages to them and have them reflect and give it back to you, you know?
Is it fair to say that like She Looks So Perfect was the song that really began to put you guys on the map?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Went top 10 in multiple countries. Tell me about the songwriting process for that record, and did you know that this was going to be one of those big ones?
I just have a notable conversation in my head. So we signed to Capitol UK, and we came over to LA for a writing trip whilst we were making our third EP. And at the time, our A&R was a dude called Nick Raphael. They rented us a house, and he said to me in the kitchen, he goes, all your songs go do-do-ka, 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 do-do-ka. You need songs that go boom, spook, boom, boom, spook, boom. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you don't have any grooves. You have no song that has any kind of groove to it at all. And I thought about that for days and days and days. And then we went in and we wrote a song with this guy called Jake Sinclair, Michael and I. Jake pulls out a nylon acoustic and he goes, standing there, I'm wearing a underwear, and I know now I'm so down. I was like, whatever, that's cool, but it needs like something else. And I had this like rudiment I've been working on that went boom, and I was like, oh, maybe this is the time we put a groove in a song. And we ended up writing the whole song, and instant single, whatever, and we put it out, and it did good for us. But if it weren't for Nick saying something like that to me, just being the drummer and the rhythms and stuff, and making it occur to me that we needed to think harder about how our records sounded to be in a top 40 space and what they were doing rhythmically, I don't think that song would have happened.
What did that debut album teach you about yourselves as people, but also as a band?
I learned more about like myself at that time, looking back now, because at the time, like Callum said, it's just like instinctual. Like, we like this sort of song, great, love that lyric, love that chord, you know, let's put a drum beat on it, put guitars on it. It was just like very, whatever came out. I didn't feel like a massive amount of pressure at that time to create, you know, because there's nothing really, there was something to build off, but it wasn't like we'd had this big moment or anything. So when, I don't know, when it did really well, it was such a crazy time. Yeah, it's funny to look back on. It was so like childlike making it.
Those subsequent albums following that debut, Sounds Good, Feels Good, then you had Young Blood. Leading into those albums, you talk about pressure. At this point now, you've got success, you got notoriety, you guys are forming your own sound. Where were you in the creative process during that time period leading up to Young Blood?
The processes of, honestly, all of our albums have been so different. You know, Sounds Good, Feels Good, we made in like 2 months. We made that album pretty much for ourselves. We were like, we want to create a rock album and we want to do it our way. We want to do the exact sound we want to do. And like, now that we were given this opportunity to create the type of album that we wanted to make, we were like, let's get this off our chest. And so we created that one, and then the process for Youngblood was almost like completely different. It was almost like the aftermath of the first two albums. And we were sort of like left in this place of like, okay, who are we now? And what do we sound like now that the musical landscape had shifted so much just within those like 2 years? You know, by the time we had released Sounds Good, Feels Good to when we released Youngblood, it was literally the difference between like people buying music and now people stream music. So it was like a totally different mindset.
Remember the words you told me, love me till the day I die.
Youngblood, to me, as a fan, I'm like, this feels like the next song that was a big, big song for people who were peripheral fans. What worked, right? Like, how did you strike lightning again?
That song came about in all different ways. But again, rhythmic motives were like, damn, you know, if you're a rock band in a world that, you know, top 40 isn't doing rock.
Right.
But why? You know, you ask and you go, well, the recordings that we've been doing aren't really lending themselves to fitting in, but also standing out, you know? So we needed like a rhythmically disruptive record with a melody that showcased the vocal ability of the group, you know? And we started to take note of the rhythms and stuff, and we were like, damn, there hasn't been a shuffle on top 40 in a long time, ages. So we started to combine these musical influences of post-punk and, you know, bands like The Police, but also paying attention to tempo. At the time, I think Fetty Wap, My Way was like the biggest song in the world. And I think if you look, the tempos are the same. We were like, well, what if you just put a guitar riff over what's the popular tempo right now? Where's the heartbeat, the resting heartbeat of the world in pop?
It was very much 150.
Yeah.
That was where
150
everyone was
BPM,
at.
that's everybody was there.
Yeah, so we were just kind of thinking about music in that kind of way, but that song melodically just came out of the spirit for real, like just spat it out in a melodic sketch. And then we filled in the words. That song kind of really exploded for us. It has qualities to it that we'd always wanted as an identifiable band. It really showcases the best of what we are.
Youngblood, so you want me, out of your life, and I'm just a dead man walking tonight.
Now, I know you produced and wrote all of your projects, but I understand that you worked often with producers who would take your elements and kind of help to rearrange them. But you took everything that you've learned at this point and said, no, we're doing this ourselves from top to bottom. Talk to me about creating 5 Sauce 5 with just your DNA on it.
I think what was so important about this process was like us connecting together as brothers, that being the like underlying thesis of it. It felt right to like bet on each other. We were like, let's just do this ourselves, trust each other, trust our instincts, trust all of our abilities. And you know, we've really, really lifted each other up throughout the whole process. The album and kind of a lot of the songs on it are like, you know, more introspective, and they're kind of like looking at the bigger picture of stuff. And I think that it was very much in line with what we wanted to create. And in the past, whenever we've gone to make albums or make music, you know, it's been us going in with, you know, someone else and you know, letting them drive the ship. But, you know, for this process, it was like, all right, we've booked a studio for a month, just the 4 of us sitting in a room for a full month. It was just a super different process, and it was like... It
was really fun.
It was
as well.
really fun, and just like awesome to like see each other grow, and you know, where we're all at now musically and as musicians and writers and people. It was like a beautiful process.
When I read the lyrics to A Complete Mess, it read like prose to me, like poetry. It's very metaphorical.
Caught up in heaven, but your heaven ain't the same. And I've never been a saint, have I?
It seemed like there was a different style, writing style. I don't know if that's correct, but as a listener, it seemed like there was a new approach to the way you wrote this. Talk to me about, you know, the writing process with that record.
Like lyrically and melodically, that song very much is different than something we would have done on the third or fourth album. I think on the third and fourth album, a lot of the time you'd focus on do the melody and then like, you know, sort of fill in the blanks, whereas Complete Mess for me is more like stream of consciousness, I suppose. What happened there is what you hear in the lyrics that sort of were subconsciously sitting there. It kind of wasn't overthought. That was very refreshing for us as a band. We're just like, holy that song just like happened, as opposed to like, sometimes, you know, you write a song, you know, you're bashing your head against the wall for 8 hours trying to get it right. and this was not the case.
No, the video was a perfect distillation of the concepts in the song, right? Because it's disorienting, you know, you got the thing happening to distort your face. It's a complete mess. You guys look great. It's also a complete mess. No, I was playing. But tell me about the inspiration for the video.
Well, I guess the metaphorical sense is the four of us are kind of in this infinite place of creation, and the desert represents that, and sometimes we all go our separate ways. During the video, you're seeing the reflections and the consideration of who the hell am I and what am I when I'm a part of all this. Metaphorically, it shows the band deciding to be together again and coming together, but at the end, you know that big blue orb thing?
Yeah.
It's basically a symbol for the source, and the source is the place where all the songs and all the love and everything comes from in this life, and it's kind of a thing we spoke about a lot. As songwriters, you tap into your source or your core, or your truthful message that comes naturally without bending it to your will, you know? That video is kind of a more mature concept for us, which was pretty scary because I don't know if our fans are necessarily super into spiritualism or anything like that, but we were trying to show the world that we are following an intuitive purpose here, and we could sugarcoat it in a different way, but this is how it feels, and this is how it feels to us.
What do you want the fans to receive from 5 Sauce 5?
I don't think there's a singular thing that I want the people listening to take away from it. It's just more, just kind of feeling it, you know? We spent a lot of time kind of recreating the place in which we first created music in this, and I think that it's shown within it, so, yeah.
So when it's all said and done, what will the legacy be?
That's a big question.
Work in progress.
Yeah. I'd really like to be remembered as a great Australian band that you couldn't really get rid of because they kept writing great songs.
I love that, actually.
I'd be pretty stoked on that.